Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Got another fragrance rotation video coming for all of you. Now I'm going to leave the dates, the name of the fragrances, and the date that I wore them in the description as always. So let's get this rolling here. We got Akdeniz on Monday from Unique Luxury. Leather, thyme, musk, citrus. You got some pineapple, marine notes in there. Just a really deep, complex, and fresh fragrance. Very tropical, not quite as tropical as one of their new releases, but still a nice twist on a blue fragrance. Tons of projection and longevity, as you've come to expect from the House of Unique Luxury. Now we got Dubai Citrine on Tuesday. Not just one of my favorite from the Dubai series from Bond number 9, but probably one of my favorite fragrances from the entire collection of Bond number 9. You get some seaweed, pine, or fir balsam, one of those two. Red berry, some musk, costus, woods, florals. Very deep fragrance, very fresh and juicy with a little bit of maritime notes with that seaweed again. Very, very heavily compliment oriented and also something that just goes great in high heat situations. Now, from Argos, we got Brivido Della Caccia, and this was on Wednesday. Juniper, leather. Got some different types of like green oils in there as well. Really gorgeous outdoor fragrance. It's definitely something that's got a little bit of sweetness, but it's very green. It doesn't have any type of unnatural sweetness going on from the juniper. Just very well balanced, very green and leather forward, but with some very nice and inviting notes as well. That is, for me, one of the easiest ones to wear from the entire house. Great for all around, cold weather, warm weather, springtime, it doesn't matter. Brivido Della Caccia for me, it goes well pretty much any time of the year. Now, this is Wood Symphony from Amouage, and this was on Thursday. It's got some rum, orris root, kind of like a root beer, rum, woods. Very complex fragrance. It's kind of difficult to describe unless you've smelled the fragrance. I know a lot of people, they kind of consider this like a hidden gem in the Amouage library series, and I'm right there with it. For me, it's kind of more occasional and situational, but a very deep and complex fragrance. Definitely something that deserves a couple wearings before you kind of figure it out. So this is definitely one from the library series. I would say get a sample or a decant of, because I do know some people that may not love this fragrance, but for me, really, really good fragrance, good for dressing up. Nothing, even though it's a strong fragrance, there's nothing to me that's really offensive in there. And you do have some heavier notes, but it doesn't play across kind of like you'd think. So certainly worth checking out, but sample or decant first, most likely for Wood Symphony. Now on Friday, we got Roja Parfums, Amber Oud. One of my favorites from the Oud series. Got some kind of honey, dark fruit notes along with the Oud and some of the other darker, deeper, richer notes. Just a very, very inviting fragrance. It's something that's going to garner a lot of compliments while also smelling unique. And it still stays true to the Roja Parfums Oud series, where it is oud heavy, definitely more of a clean, more wearable oud. It's nothing funky, barnyard, animalic in there. So very different. And some of his ouds do go that way, like from the Golf collection as well. So it really just depends on what type of oud and how much that he's using to kind of make that fragrance. So they're all different. This one I find probably the most wearable of all of them, which is probably why it's the most popular. So Friday, one of my favorites from Bond number 9 again. I feel like I'm going to say that about all of them from Bond 9, but they do make some really good fragrances. Some not so great, but for me, the Dubai series, and especially a lot of the originals, including Signature Scent, which was close to the release of the originals. I think it was like 4 or 5 years off. Very simple fragrance, but it's beautiful. Musk, tonka, oud, and rose. Probably a little bit more going on in that, but those are the main 4 notes that you get. One of the fragrances in my collection that I would say is very linear because it is base heavy, not a ton of ingredients, and it's pretty high concentration. But I love the smell of it so much. This being more of a linear fragrance doesn't really bother me. Yes, after a couple hours, the rose does kind of die off a little bit, but really what you're left with from beginning to end is pretty similar overall, especially compared to most fragrances. But I absolutely love it. Very good dress-up fragrance, and women seem to really, really enjoy it. Projection and longevity, just insane at 30% there. So on Sunday, Unique Luxury newer release, actually the newest release from Unique Luxury. I think they may be releasing something later this year, but I don't know the name of that fragrance yet. And this was released earlier this year. Ocean the Rive, juicy, dense, tropical, posh, regal, whatever term you want to use. Very, very ritzy smelling fragrance. It smells expensive, good quality ingredients, nothing too forced or fake. Of course, all these companies are using aroma chemicals in some capacity. Some do it better than others. One thing about Unique Luxury that I really like is that you get a ton of projection and longevity, but nothing feels too forced or overdone, at least for my personal taste. So really good stuff by them. Definitely a really nice new release. Blue fragrance, similar to Akdeniz. I guess you could kind of put it in that same category. This is going to be a lot more tropical smelling even than Akdeniz and Izmir, in my opinion. It's definitely something that reminds you of a tropical paradise or a vacation. So it was very aptly named. So you got two of probably my favorite blue fragrances in a row here. Next week we wore Aqua Sapphire on Monday. Man, rum, Cypriol, Divana. Again, people try to compare this fragrance to every single thing. And all the stuff that I've heard people try to compare Aqua Sapphire to, those fragrances could be compared to something before them that came out previously. So it's just how deep do you want to dig? Blue fragrance category. This is more of a marine blue fragrance than a traditional blue fragrance because it's got some seaweed. Slightly funky notes in here too with the Divana, Cypriol, seaweed. Got some rum. It's really interesting. I won't even name the fragrances people try to compare this to because they don't deserve the recognition, honestly. But the fragrances that people try to compare this to the most don't even share some of the same notes. So it's really interesting. There's no patent on fragrances. So Boadicea, they wanted to clone those or mimic those. They kind of did a poor job because there's a lot of stuff in this fragrance, again, that a lot of people who try to compare it to certain other fragrances that are blue fragrances from other houses, they just all fall short in a massive way. Now, if it's worth the price tag to you, that's completely another discussion that can only be, decided by the person purchasing it. For me, I like Aqua Sapphire so much, not just one of my favorites from Boadicea, but maybe one of my favorites in my entire fragrance collection. So much so that I bought a backup bottle of Aqua Sapphire, so I'll never be without it. Now, next on Tuesday, very different way, we went Al Shareef Oud. This is Rakheem, and this is a 4-year-old oud from Thailand. It's a wild organic oud oil, and it's from the Pranchin region, I believe. Very, very fruity. I don't even need to take out the stopper and the application stick to smell it. Unbelievably strong. It smells like kind of like dried raisins, figs, dates, those really, really dark fruits. Definitely oud heavy, but not in the barnyard animalic. Maybe ever so slightly that direction. But really more of a clean, complex, almost tobacco type of oud, if that makes any sense. A lot of ouds, if they don't lean barnyard or animalic, and they seem to have fruity characteristics, a lot of those lean into more of a tobacco note for me, especially at the base. And the reason the tobacco note for me kind of comes across is maybe it's just the association, because my grandfather used to chew like Chattanooga chew, like the chewing tobacco that does have kind of a raisiny, dark fruit tobacco type of smell. And that is actually very similar smell I get from this, a lot more sophisticated, obviously. But this is just absolutely incredible stuff. One of my favorite pure oud oils that I've ever tried so far. So next up from the house of Boadicea, newer fragrance for me, older, but I've been looking for this one for quite some time. This is King of the World. Aromatic, fresh, green, clean, creamy. In fact, this actually reminds me of a lot more aromatic Middle Eastern version of Gramercy Park from Bond Number 9, which is one of my all-time favorite fragrances from Bond 9. Again, I know I said it pretty much about all these so far, but truly is. I actually have a backup bottle of Gramercy Park because it is no longer in production. Obviously, other people didn't like it that much, otherwise they'd probably still be producing it. But King of the World, unbelievable. I'm glad to have it in my collection. And part of the reason I wanted it is because from the notes, I figured that it would be somewhat similar to Gramercy Park. Definitely more aromatic and Middle Eastern, especially on the top notes, but it does share that very clean, green, slightly creamy, I don't even know how to describe it. This fragrance is just wonderful, especially for high heat situations. Very fresh, great for office, date night, spring, summer. Even enough power to wear in the cool, but for me that would be a little bit more out of place, and I have so many other heavier fragrances that could fill that role. This is going to be pretty much a spring and summer fragrance for me. So next up, was this on Thursday? Yeah, Thursday. We got Alkout. I don't wear this that much, but I'm about to be doing my top fragrances from the Boadicea collection, along with doing a video on the entire collection that I've acquired from Boadicea so far. And Alkout, man, the woods, the oud. You got some, I think, pimento, lavender, maybe coriander in there as well. Definitely some really nice spice and floral notes in the top, but it's really balanced by the strong wood and oud notes at the bottom. And of course you have the hint of blending with maltol, so you get some sweetness in there, and that very, very, very slight similarity to Baccarat Rouge with that kind of slight burnt caramel. Thankfully, that's something that really turns me off fragrances, is that maltol smell. So when I read it in here, I did trust Boadicea and I blind bought it, and I'm glad I did because it's not too heavily done. It just keeps the fragrance from being overly dry from all those spices and the woods and everything that they put in the fragrance. So I feel like in this case, the maltol actually helped balance it out. So really a big fan of Alkout. I think they have it back on their website, so if it interests you, grab it while you can, because it is pretty rare. So the next ones we got from the house of Shareef Oud. Two different fragrances. This is called Khalouq. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but you're going to hear that a lot on this channel. And so this is really what Shareef envisioned the Holy Kaaba smelling like hundreds to even thousands of years ago. So he used more ingredients kind of appropriate to what distillers and perfumers were using at that time. Really, really beautiful fragrance. I'm wearing these two back to back because I don't know what my purchase is going to be next, but I will be purchasing a couple more expensive oud oils from Shareef. And next we got bayt ateeq, the second release of it. And this is exactly how Shareef imagined the Holy Kaaba smelling in modern times, more modern times. So this was a couple hundred to thousands of years ago, and this is more akin to the present day times in a couple decades prior. But this is more of a modern interpretation of how the Holy Kaaba smells, where of course Khalouq the day before was much more vintage and much more retro type of kind of scent, and how they used to perfume the Holy Kaaba. Both incredible. Unfortunately, they're both very expensive, and they're both so good. I'm probably going to end up buying them both. But for me, I think bayt ateeq is the more wearable one, more of a rose, oud, saffron style, where Khalouq is definitely, for me, a little bit more, not really challenging. It's definitely darker, a little bit more barnyard and animalic oud heavy. Let's just check this one again here. Yeah, dark fruits too. You do get a lot of dark fruits in this one, similar to Rakheem, but it is in that slight kind of barnyard animalic realm, where the bayt ateeq is a little bit different. It's definitely more rose, ambergris, saffron, sweeter. This one I would say is definitely more wearable. And that's the problem. They're both so good and they're both so different. I probably will be buying them both. I don't know if I'll be doing it at the same time, but I'll probably be buying bayt ateeq, the second. I'll be buying that one first. And they've got a couple more on my list that I'm going to be purchasing from them. Just a very good house and very good education, learning about the wild oud, having it in your collection, being able to smell a pure organic wild oud oil from different regions, different ages, and then it really gives you appreciation to what, or perhaps maybe what fragrance companies are not using and putting in their fragrances. Again, I say this a lot in my videos, but oud has become a very catchy term, and there's a lot of companies that really like to abuse that. They may not even be putting real oud in the fragrances, or they'll be putting an extremely minuscule amount that you probably can't even smell just to list it as an ingredient note. So next up on Sunday, this is really interesting to wear after wearing these two fragrances from Shareef, because it really gave me a more of appreciation for this fragrance that I already had, which is Boadicea the Victorious Oud Sapphire. And the oud note in this is absolutely incredible. It is absolutely quality. You get some leather, some resins, some other types of notes in this fragrance. But really what Oud Sapphire is about is what the name would suggest. It's all about oud. Not as animalic as you would think, but there's a slight bit of that, but it's also got a very nice kind of slightly sweet medicinal note, along with a slight tobacco note as well. I wouldn't quite describe it as smoky. It's leaning that direction, but it doesn't quite get there. So it's got a lot of complexity as well. Someone joked around in the comments, I forget who it was, they may be watching the video, but they said they should have named this Silk Sapphire because it's so smooth. And just the way they pulled off the heavy ingredients in this fragrance and the oud and blended it all together just shows really the quality of oils that Boadicea is using and the capabilities that they have with Christian Provenzano and some of the other perfumers that they've used. But this stuff is absolutely incredible. And of course, after getting more and more into the house of Al Shareef and buying very expensive attars, getting tons of samples from them from all the purchases that I've had as well. Trying some of the wild organic oud oils that are from different regions, different ages, including one over 40 years old. Actually, I think it was over 50 years old, 1972, from India. And you really get an appreciation kind of for what these fragrances have to offer. And that was one thing that kind of got me into Boadicea in the first place, is when they list oud in the fragrance, for the most part, you can definitely smell that they're using a good quality and a good quantity of oud. So that's all I got for you guys for now. A lot more stuff coming for the channel, just a really busy time of year. So I'll be getting back to it. Hopefully get the Boadicea collection video done, and then a top like maybe 10 or 15 from the house of Boadicea. And yeah, a lot of other stuff for the channel, a lot of other fragrances I've purchased and I'm going to be purchasing and just have not got around to reviewing yet. So glad you guys are still here. Good seeing you again. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be seeing y'all soon.